and I welcome you all to this MyGov talk, where we are going to discuss about India's INDCs for the upcoming COP21 talk. Before I venture into the talk, I hope that everyone is safe and sound, because about half an hour ago we had a major earthquake in North India, and I hope that people are safe. We are very honored today to be joined by the Union Minister for Environment, Forest and Climate Change, Shri Prakash Javadekar ji. Welcome, sir, to the talk. Uh, on the panel along with Shri Javadekar is Mr. Samir Saran. He is Vice President, Observer Research Foundation, and is a known expert in climate change talks. We are joined by Mr. Khandekar. He is a senior editor from Dainik Bhaskar and has a lot of interest in wildlife. On the Google Hangout, we are joined by Viva Karmani. She is a social media voice on climate change, and because climate change does involve a lot of interaction with people and their contribution, so we have one social media voice to represent their views. We are also joined by Diksha Katyal. She is a MyGov contributor, and she has put in a lot of suggestions on environmental issues. And welcome, everybody. Before I turn to the minister for his opening comments, let me just briefly put it out how the structure of the program will be. First, I'll request the minister to explain to the people and the audience the India's agenda for COP21 talks, what is the thought process behind India's INDC, how we look about going into the future. And after that, we'll go around the panel where they can put in their views on INDCs and then ask the questions to minister or among themselves. We'll also take questions that have come from the audience on the MyGov discussion page. And if we have time, we'll take one or two live questions, which you can put on Twitter using the MyGov handle or MyGov Talk COP21 hashtag. Mr. Minister, before I ask him to speak, he has been a very active voice in the Indian political scene for the last 3 decades. He has been a very effective and articulate spokesperson for his party. He has been Minister of INB and Parliamentary Affairs before he took on this responsibility of environment, forest and climate change. Even before becoming a minister, he has some interest in the environment and climate change issues, and he represented India government in Belgium and in the UK-India climate dialogue in 2011 and 12. And therefore, it is our great pleasure that he is here today to discuss about the upcoming COP21 talks. Minister, sir.
Before actually going for Paris and COP21, in 2 minutes, let me summarize what we at the Environment Ministry are doing for last 18 months. First, India was perceived a naysayer or with negative image in all international forums for many years, because internally also this ministry was perceived to be a speed breaker ministry, roadblock ministry, anti-development ministry. But we have changed the basic perception with a catchword of sustainable development, where we care for our earth, where we care for nature. And to me, my mandate is Jal, Vayu, Prithvi, Akash or Agni, all 5 elements, maintain the balance of 5 elements and protect 5 elements. And therefore, we decided that we want clean water, clean air, clean energy, clean environment, more green. In 2 sentences, it is Prime Minister Narendra Modi's inspiration of our mission that we will strive for clean India, green India. And that is the mission with which we have started. We have made processes transparent by making it online, by standardizing many of the processes. We have brought pendency to a negligible level. We have used technology for better monitoring. Now, major polluting industries we have mandated them to put 24/7 monitoring devices, sensors on their effluent discharge and on their chimneys. And I have paid out of 2,000 we mandated, more than 1600 have already fixed them. And now I can, from my cabin, we can see what is the pollution level of their water discharge or air discharge. So we are using technology. This is all inspiration of Prime Minister. Last but not least, for Swachh Bharat, waste management is an important aspect. Therefore, we have revised and revamped all waste management rule. Therefore, solid waste management rule, construction and demolition newly formed these rules, then e-waste management rule, plastic waste management rules, biomedical waste management rules, and also importantly, the hazardous waste management rule. And all we have received tremendous suggestions from people on our draft. We are taking all good suggestions on board, and by year end we'll be ready with our new plan, and then we will enter in 2016, we'll enter into a new regime for Swachh Bharat with new revamped rules. So on this backdrop, our Prime Minister was very forthcoming, and he upscaled the renewable targets in one go from 20,000 megawatts to 100,000 megawatts. Even the experts and others were means how he has made such an announcement. Is it practical? But now people have realized that India has that much potential, and now with 60 gigawatts of wind energy, and for wind energy we have taken a new decision of offshore wind energy also, and 10 gigawatts of biomass energy, 5 gigawatts of small hydro, all put together. It's 175. And world debates about nuclear, so we have not included in that, but that is also in clean energy. And so if you go, it's one of the, this is the huge renewable program world has ever seen. And this is this leadership of Prime Minister. And he put on table on the world discussion that unless we debate about lifestyle issues and sustainable development, path of consumption, and also importantly the climate justice, because it is the poor and the poorer countries are suffering. Therefore, the Paris must deliver climate justice. And now Earth Overshoot report has brought to the fore that with present extravagant consumption of some countries will require 5 planets, and we don't have them. So we have only one planet to care, and it can suffice needs of all people. And therefore, these two topics we have brought. We are not now naysayers. We are shakers and movers of the Paris Accord, and now India's voice is heard in rapt attention, and very due weightage is now India gets on all platforms, and this is the prime mover position which India has acquired through its real commitment. Because, just last one sentence, 20 years ago, the then Vice President of America, Al Gore, has presented before the world with a very powerful film, Inconvenient Truth, the climate change. With his 12 years hand-hold experience of Gujarat as a Gujarat Chief Minister, our Prime Minister has put before the world convenient action to mitigate the climate change. And therefore, this is what we are presenting to the world, with hope, with ambition, and our INDCs reflect all these things, and therefore world has appreciated it.
Before I get into the specifics of the INDCs, you mentioned the example of how this ministry is now perceived as a proactive ministry instead of a roadblock ministry, which you referred to. Would you like to give one example, one or two examples, how this change has been brought about?
See, there is a process. When somebody applies, he has to come to office, then go back, again come, and there was office serial type thing. But now I have changed it. We have made all online applications online, and now project proponent can see where his file is pending. If it is pending for more than what it is due, then he can make complaint. So this is how we are also revising, and the process has become transparent. Then we used to give terms of reference after they present application and environment impact assessment study. Now we have standardized terms of reference of all 39 sectors which require environment clearance. And now the process which used to take 12 months to 15 months is now within 12 days they can complete. And now from next month we are allowing all them to present with their application, the environment impact assessment study and TOR all together in one go, so their delays are deleted. That's the major change we have brought.
Coming specifically to the INDCs, one of the phrases which has actually caught the imagination of the people is that there should be climate justice. And India was not part of the problem, but that you want now to be part of the solution. So in this specific context of these two phrases that has become the phrase that defines India's policy, if you have to sum up the India's approach towards the upcoming COP21 talks in say 2-3 bullet points, what would those be?
The bullet point is that we want equitable and just climate agreement in Paris. But we don't want Paris to fail. I still hope and will strive hard till the end that the collective wisdom prevails. We must care for our earth. The latest third-party review by all NGO Alliance has brought out a very clear picture that India and developing world have done more than their capacity in committing the INDCs, and developed world have done less than their capacity. So we will expect more ambitious action from developed world so that we maintain the hope that we will maintain the temperature rise below 2 degrees by the end of century. And to that end, India is walking already a sustainable development path, but we are on growth trajectory. We want carbon space, and that must be provided by those who have occupied it for last 150 years.
These are very interesting points. I'll not turn to Samir, and this is a good opportunity to turn to him because he recently has written a lot about on this subject, which have gained a lot of attention. Samir, your initial thoughts on what the minister said, India's plans for COP21, and anything you want to ask the minister?
So I think the minister has framed the debate very appropriately. I think in the recent past, we were being unnecessarily defensive. You know, if you look at the sheer numbers, every American burns 5 times more coal than every Indian. So an average Indian only consumes 1/5 the coal that an average American consumes. An average Indian consumes 1/3 the coal Europeans consume, and around the same level as the Chinese as well. And yet, we are seen as the bad boys of coal. We consume 1/3 their levels and 1/5 their levels, but we had become synonymous with burning coal. Second, let's look at renewable energy. Indians roughly spend, an average Indian roughly spends 2 to 4 times more than an average Japanese, Chinese and American on procurement of renewable energy. I'm not talking about installation. I'm talking about energy consumed. We are the leaders in renewable energy consumption already. There is a business case. And this is not necessarily government policy alone. There is a business case that exists. Entrepreneurs in India have created a sector. We are only second to Germany. But once our Prime Minister's plans start unfolding, Germany will also be behind us in terms of per capita renewable energy consumption.
Yes, when you scale up the...
When you scale up 5 times, we are scaling up 5 times from 35 gigawatts to nearly what the minister said, 175 gigawatts. So this gives you the Indian reality. What the current INDC document has done has demonstrated this reality, that we are green leaders. We are committing 5 times more of installations of renewable energy. We are also really aware of our development needs. We are safeguarding our 3 to 4 times ramp up of energy consumption. So they have given the Indian duality. We will have to safeguard our development space, our lifeline space for our poor people, but we are going to be extremely ambitious in being global leaders when it comes to green and clean energy. The third thing that is very interesting, and again I think the credit must go to this government, is that they have articulated a strong emphasis on adaptation. And I think they are realists. I think they will not say this because it's a part of the negotiating strategy, but I think they realize the global money is not going to flow into adaptation. to the extent we want. So they are looking at national funds, domestic instruments, other ways of responding to the misery of people who will be affected by climate change. That's a third aspect which I think is very interesting. But the fourth, and I think what is the most interesting for a student of communication like me, is that the Prime Minister and the Environment Minister are changing the Indian discourse, deploying some very useful techniques. And one of them, and two of them I'll mention, was the early invocation of the Yajurveda. So try to put a spiritual emphasis. I'm not a spiritual person, but I'm sure there's a large amount of constituency that will respond to this particular aspect. And Mahatma Gandhi. And the second invocation was Mahatma Gandhi. So if you look at these two, the interplay of these two very powerful, aspects of
India can now own up the climate change discussion rather than being led.
So I think it gives room to.
INDCs also were declared by the minister on the 2nd October.
So what I'm saying is that by doing these two things, and I don't think this is the end of the matter. I think India is certainly going to be under some pressure when it reaches Paris for certain more concessions, timelines, datelines, and I think we can't condemn our poor to timelines. So I think we'll have to be smart when we navigate that space. But the Prime Minister and the Environment Minister have both bought themselves a certain leadership room, which can demonstrate, like he said, that we are not the naysayers, we are the deal makers. We want to go there, and we want to encourage the West to invest 3 times more on renewable energy. We want to encourage the West to start cutting down on their coal consumption. We must meet in a middle ground.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, to the Minister, my question is, sir, as you approach Paris, and we saw in Copenhagen there were very high expectations, low outcome. What do you fear could be the main reasons why we might not come out with an ambitious agreement in Paris? Do you fear a repeat of Copenhagen?
No. People are saying that Copenhagen, which was Copenhagen, can happen in Paris, and this is not Prakash Javadekar saying. This is French President Hollande has warned developed world that unless developed world commits more finance and technology support, Paris can be a failure. So this is the warning given. I think with this warning of French President, who is the host, the developed world will come out with a more reasonable proposals, and then we can win the battle against, because it is not developed world versus developing world, Europe and America versus India and China. No, it is more serious. It is our fight as human beings with the climate change, the science, which has shown us some inconvenient truths, and we know the roadmap how to deal with it. So I think that's the bigger purpose will absolutely evolve from Paris, and we will have equitable and just climate deal.
Mr. Khandekar, you wanted to come to this?
I'm very happy that Mr. Javadekar brought in that Copenhagen's background into this thing, because like the French president has said, during the Copenhagen conference, if we all remember, the Danish Prime Minister had created a separate group, and he led a 25 countries group to actually dismiss the agenda that the entire world was, taking ahead. So that was one of the reasons of the Copenhagen failure. But now when the French president, as Mr. Javadekar is saying, is committed, my question to Mr. Javadekar is that, because the INDCs have been lauded by all over the world, all the stakeholders, the NGOs and the government, we are trying to create an additional carbon sink of about 3 million, and you are saying that the new forest and tree cover would be increased in the country. That is most important for India among many other problems, because we are a poor country. We have got huge population living along the coastal lines. So these are the important things, and how are you going to address, because INDC has been well received all over, but we would like to go into
first. I'm happy because this is first time we are committing on creating additional carbon sink through forest development. There are 5 pillars on which we are building this case. First, today 40% of our families are using firewood for their cooking and energy needs. By 2030, this 40% will come to 4% only, very remote area. The Petroleum Ministry has created a whole plan of providing LPG in 2 kg and 5 kg simple cylinders to all those. And so they are going to cover all. There are more new technologies for smokeless chullas also, but I want to save firewood also, and therefore that is first. More importantly, the very plantation success rate of forest, which was dismal 10 to 15% at the end of 5th year, we want to raise it like the private farms. How it happens? Because now I have started and we have taken a policy decision that along with each tree planted, we will have earthen pot also put in the same pit.
Okay.
So people around the forest area or the MNRG will guarantee that every 15 years you are filling the tank, the earthen pot, and it gives a real live irrigation, saves water, but makes that plant will. So the survival rate, which is 10%, will go beyond 50%. That will be a major thing. Third, we are reviewing the scientific management aspect of the dense forest and changing quality of it, improving quality of it. We have also ambitious plan to densification of moderately dense forest, and in degraded forest, we want to involve people, public-private partnership in all respects. So more than 25 million hectares are forest land, but there is no forest. We want to give it to private sector also on lease with revenue sharing and rent model, and they can, instead of importing wood, because that is exporting job, they will grow forest for their commercial use also, and 10% of the forest will not be cut at all, and it will be useful fruit and flowers and useful for birds, animals, and human beings staying there. So we'll have more green cover. All the highways, all the right of ways will have now 1%, 5,000 crore they have maintained for making highways green. All around Ganga, on both banks, we have identified the patches where we can have more green patches, and we will create that. So hinterland, catchment area, densification of forest is all on our cards.
I will have one more. You are going to China today, and if you see, the world is looking at America, China, and next is India. They are the worst emitters, and we are the emerging country in sense of economy. China is shifting from manufacturing to service industry, but India, due to Make in India and other programs of the new government, there is a likelihood that the manufacturing activity will go up, and therefore they will need the various fuels, mainly the fossil fuel, which we can't do away immediately. So what is the plan of this?
But here is a very good opportunity for India, because we will enter into Make in India and as a manufacturing hub in days to come. So we will leapfrog in technologies and will be more energy efficient. As we have seen in Delhi, the Delhi metro is today's world's one of the best metro and cleanest metro. So this is the benefit of leapfrogging on technology, on economy, on many other factors, and that will happen to our manufacturing process. So will not emit the way world emitted for their industrial growth, but will be more energy efficient, will be more reducing our energy intensity as well as emission intensity. मैंने एक छोटा शब्द यूज किया, लोगों को ये तकनीकी शब्द समझते नहीं. तो what is reducing energy intensity and emission intensity? कम धुएं में ज्यादा तरक्की.
कम धुएं में ज्यादा तरक्की.
हाँ, तो ये है reducing emission intensity. और कम बिजली में ज्यादा उत्पादन, यह है reducing energy intensity. So we are taking people at every.
वैसे आपकी क्लाइमेट जस्टिस ये जो नया शब्द प्रयोग है, ये भी बहुत अच्छा है for the global players to understand that we are actually looking at the justice in climate world.
Because let me tell you again, the world started, human intervention started polluting the world when industrial revolution started happening, so after 1880 and onwards, if you count the whole cumulative carbon emissions, so America is 30%, other developed countries are 40-50%, 10% in China. India is just 3%. So we are not part of the problem, but we want to be part of solution. And therefore, what we have come up with is not only slogans, but action. And therefore, we will walk that green path. We will walk this sustainable model. And climate justice we are seeking because though we are not part of the problem, we are suffering. Our erratic monsoons, our untimely rains, more hurricanes, floods, drought cycle, and not only India, we have 60 islands. So we are small island developing countries also. And so all island developing countries and developing world is suffering, though they are not part of the problem. And therefore we want justice.
Samir, you wanted to come in? Yes.
Yeah. सबसे अगर आप कोई ये अनुमान है कि भारत को $2 ट्रिलियन चाहिए अगले 15-20 साल में अपने इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को मॉडर्नाइज करने के लिए, डेवलप करने के लिए, अब इसमें से लगभग 70%, 70% will have to come through loans and commercial borrowings, and some part of it will also come from overseas and private investments. Now my question to you is that there are 3 financing conversations taking place. One that takes place between the G7, London, New York, Paris, and they decide Basel and they decide banking loans. Second is the development finance, which takes place between the larger global community, and the third is climate finance, which is talking about additional and specific finance for climate. In Paris, do you expect, the text currently in the agreement does not provide scope for any great maneuver, but do you expect we can have a side agreement or a declaration or an announcement that the big leaders of the world will try and fix the banking systems and to make liquidity available for renewable energy installations, for infrastructure creation?
The Paris is not raising questions on developing world section. Paris Convention is actually raising questions of walking the talk by the developed countries. 100 billion they committed in Copenhagen, but it has not realized. Now they are presenting that we have mobilized $62 billion. But Arun Jaitley was forthright in Lima, telling them that this is double accounting.
Yes.
And that is not acceptable. So we want additional, new, predictable finance, which will be scaled up. Because I told the world that $100 billion is not the cost of climate action.
That's right.
The climate action cost per annum for the world is trillions of dollars. But 100 billion is what? As a measure or as a symbolic gesture of climate leadership, more than that, historical responsibility of emissions and cause of climate change. The developed world needs to give. And therefore, even I was in Columbia University last month. They said that even if they charge $4 per ton of coal production in developed world, they will generate more than $100 billion. So if that's the case, then they must do it. We are already doing nearly $4 per ton. We are doing the carbon taxation more aggressively. The developed world must now follow India. That's the.
And here comes another point.
Yeah. Mr. Kandekar, I'll come back to you. We have two other panelists who are joining us through Hangout, and they would also want to contribute. I'll now turn to Viva. Yeah. Viva, you can speak for the next 1-2 minutes on what are your views on India's plans, and a question which you may want to ask to the minister or any other panelist.
Sure. Thanks, Akhilesh. At the outset, I'd like to congratulate the ministry for a very ambitious yet achievable INDC. I personally feel very, very hopeful and very, very positive. My question to you this evening is in reference to section 2.8 under adaptation. How will the INDC submitted to COP integrate with our state action plans? We've spent the last couple of years, working on state action plans, and I would imagine that the states are a key player. So will the state action plans now need to be revised and relooked at? What are your thoughts on this?
Yeah, Viva has asked very relevant question. Adaptation is equally important like mitigation. And therefore now, because of our pressure, the world has accepted that it will be 50-50 mitigation, assistance and assistance for adaptation. And we have to build resilience capacity. And in India, we have diversity. We are a large country. But as I said, we have 60 islands where people are staying. So we are facing that island problems. We have 10 states coastal, 10 states Himalayan, 2 state deserts. So we have all kinds of variety and challenges. So we prepared and revised state action plan in cooperation with all state governments. And the summation of it is National Adaptation Plan, which will be financed through our resources. And here is where we expect that world must walk the talk and come forward and help all developing countries. Because adaptation is building resilience, and that's the first action against climate change. And we are very sure we have made yearly program of it. We took a lot of trouble this time. Because bureaucracy was thinking in terms of only 5-year planning, and they never thought beyond it, many of them. But we made each ministry to think not only of 5 years, but 15 years. Because today we prepared for 2030, and they have done a very serious exercise. And with that exercise, I think we are able to have a very practical mitigation targets as also adaptation program.
This brings up an interesting point you mentioned about the ministries, that for this climate change plans that India has to tackle it, it's not only the environment and forest ministry which is involved. There has to be a coordination with a lot of ministries.
It was huge alliance of more than 100 agencies.
Yes.
There were all state governments, all concerned ministries, their agencies, and particularly other think tanks. And we talked to all possible people, the industry associations.
So my question is, how do
private sector has also.
How do you get over the usual sloth or the inefficiencies that build into interdepartmental and interministerial corporations? How do you get beyond this?
No, I must congratulate our officers as well as all ministries, and particularly very ably guided and inspired by PMO. And therefore what happened was that every 15 days we were making reviews, and I was keeping tab on how we will build our INDCs more practical, not an essay type, but a very precise type things. And therefore, on each item, we deliberated a lot, reviewed, and interacted with all concerned.
Diksha Kachal is assistant professor in environmental studies in Delhi. Diksha, please go ahead with your views and a question.
Yeah, I must congratulate you first of all, because our country as such has achieved a significant reduction to the carbon emissions. It has been even appreciated by UNEP. We've reduced from 10%, there's been a 12% decrease in the emissions from 2005 to 2010, and I'm sure by 2030 we would reduce down to 30 to 35%. Having said that, since we play a dominant role in G77, why don't we collaterally submit the viewpoints of developing countries to the developed countries so that they don't hijack the issues always?
Because I think this time Bonn, the latest ADP negotiation round, was a classic example where G77 plus China and African country groupings have dominated and have actually marshaled out the old, inequitable and very lopsided draft, and now the new text which contains all elements, all principles and under convention, and also many rational suggestions by all countries. I hope this was a very basic improvement needed, which we could do it. So we are leading it by example and with proposals.
This talk that we had put up on MyGov generated a lot of interest in the public. There were more than 400 questions that came, all of them very relevant, and this was an interesting learning for us that subject which is slightly technical, which is climate change and how do you mitigate climate change, this generated so much of interest. So we have some of these questions which we would now like to pose to the panel. Before I come to the minister, I would want Samir to answer this question. That Namrata Quatra asked this question: what can the government do to promote eco-entrepreneurship? So what is it you think that can the government do, and then we'll get the minister to perhaps respond to both your views as well as Namrata's views.
So I think there are two elements to it. The first element is that how do you promote entrepreneurship? And I think they have already launched a number of schemes to encourage micro and small scale enterprises, as well as look at entrepreneurship based on innovation. So there are a number of government schemes already announced in the budget and more recently launched in the last few weeks. But when you go into the sustainability sphere and talk about eco-entrepreneurship, I think we need to be a little ambitious. So, we should see the opportunities that exist. I believe that if India can get some of its economic model right in the next 4 or 5 years, we can be exporting the Indian example to large parts of the world. I think for us, we should not be hesitant in this. We should be investing in creating green solutions, in sustainability-driven enterprises, and in impact investment. And we should not get enamored by size. Big is not beautiful. We should also be looking at some of these smaller niche solutions. And if we can get one solution right for one village, there are applications for it all over the world.
Absolutely.
And we should be looking at the bottom of the pyramid, innovation. We should not be waiting for the big business houses to find us answers. We should be getting individuals to start participating in the India story.
Before you answer this, sir, I just want to club this because he made an interesting point on not only big solutions, we should also promote small solutions. So Devendra Goyal has this question that why can't we use the Mudra Bank model to promote something like plastic to oil machines available in the market, because this again will help in mitigating some of the actions. So your thoughts, sir?
Yeah, absolutely right, Goyal, and the first questioner and Quatra, and because Samir and we went to China a few years ago in our climate change studies and conversations all over the world before I became minister. So let me tell you, this whole expansion of our renewable, the new waste management rules, the Ganga cleaning program, more green program, all will present hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurial opportunities. And I have only today we have decided to immediately work out at least 50 skill sets which are important. And through Skill India, we want to integrate our skills also, eco-entrepreneurship, into the whole Skill India
so this
program.
Is an important news point you are giving
It's
us.
Definitely an important one, and we have already worked out some basic structure, but we'll refine it in days to come. And with next year, means from January onwards, we'll put many things on practical road so that people can get new, because when we are talking of 100,000 of agricultural pumps solar powered, it's a new entrepreneurship, because agricultural pumps are using today diesel or electricity.
Instead, they can use solar energy.
So if they are using, then I studied yesterday only how they will put it. So that also putting, fixing, and servicing becomes the whole ecosystem becomes a opportunity. And
so, sir, one quick point. I think my suggestion to the minister, and I'm sure they're thinking about it, is to create a climate Uber fund.
Yeah.
You have it should be an app. Someone has an idea, you have money. You should
MyGov is the technology platform.
That's right. So using your platform, I think we should be creating Uber finance for eco entrepreneurs, where we should screen good ideas and seed angel investments in universities and Indian colleges.
Absolutely. I believe in innovation. Ultimately, innovation is the way, and then only we can win, and we can become cost effective. China did it.
Yes.
Our people are also coming back now in large numbers who were investing their talent in Western labs. Now they are coming and doing it here. But so, in a way, the new business model of disruption is also one aspect of it. But actually, last mile connectivity and the door delivery is actually where you will get large employment potential, and that we are going to.
The next question, before I bring it to the minister's notice, I'll request Viva to come in on this, because he is a prominent social media voice on this. This question is from Merlin Thomas and Yas Viva. How can I contribute as an individual to help the Government of India in achieving INDC goals? So what can citizens do? How can they supplement Government of India's efforts? Viva?
This is a very frequently asked question because very often people find that the problem is so daunting, it's so huge. Me as an individual, what can I do? I think there is lots that someone can do, and citizens play a very, very key role. I think the first place where someone can make a difference is in the sphere of education. I think that is where we need most hands. There is a lot of gaps in terms of people's understanding of climate change, what is the impact, and people need to start understanding that it's real and it is happening. And what individuals can do is start making small changes. They can start at their ward level, at the community level. They can work with their cooperators and with their councillors, and also make affirmative, positive actions, change the way they travel, start using public transport, be conscious of how they use energy, try and switch to more renewable, cleaner sources of energy, and be very, very conscious of the kind of consumption patterns that they are using. I think just raising some consciousness, and our Prime Minister has also said we have to start thinking of how we consume and what we consume. So I think if all of us make this small difference, be the change that we want to see, we can definitely contribute to a cleaner and greener India.
Mr. Khandekar, you want to comment on this?
I would like to, what she has said is very right. There are many citizen groups which are now trying to help the environmental, upgradation, in the sense that they are banning plastic. They are trying to use water very judiciously, and they are also going in for various innovations for the use of electricity. So which, if an individual household or if an individual starts doing it, because if you see all the vegetable markets, everyone goes and buys that vegetable in the plastic bags. If that is banned, which is happening everywhere, or if we start using the electricity or even public transport, which is the major thing which America has not been able to follow so far. The public transport utility has to be enhanced everywhere, whether it is buses, whether it is metros, whatever. But ultimately what we are seeing in Delhi or what we see in Beijing, these are the major problems, and individuals can start actually practicing carpooling or things like that, what she has said. And individually also, if I am using a lot of energy in my own daily use, I should cut it down by 50%, then naturally the entire country also goes up. So these kind of things should
absolutely be. Abhilash Khandekar has said it, because as a important editor of Bhaskar Group, which is committed and launched a Plastic Free India campaign, is very important work. And let me tell you, I experimented, and now I'll take it to the world. Last 9 January, I organized in one tehsil of Pune district. 5,000 school children from nearly 10 schools gathered. They sang, and in Ratnagiri also, they sang the cleanliness song, and then they decided to make their town plastic free. And now it has become a habit, because I want to show our Prime Minister that even after 1 year, it was not one day symbolic action. Now there is no plastic to be seen in these towns. These 2 trial balls, with that testing of 1 year, now I am launching at all India level. People's participation in even Delhi air pollution is important. They can use cycle, at least on Sunday and some days, where they can contribute their way nearby works. They can maintain their vehicles properly. They can do PUCs regularly. They can avoid congested lanes. They can follow lane discipline. With all these acts, though they are small, these small things make a big difference. And therefore, public participation in climate action is the mantra which Prime Minister has given.
One suggestion by Naresh Marujula from Mumbai on this public participation is that we just not have to educate our current generation, but also our future generation, the school children, because they are the custodians of our for our future generation. And he's talking about putting in the school curriculum material which is sustainable living, healthy living. Is there a government thinking about this?
We have already launched school nursery yojanas. And what is that? the children, 6th, 7th, 8th and 9th standard students will learn how to prepare the soil bed for nursery. They will learn, they will sow the seed, they will see it grow to an extent, then they will plant it in the pollen, and then they will grow it throughout the year. So it will be his own creation, and it will grow, I think, up to this size in 1 year. When that grows with annual results, he will take this as a trophy. This is his own creation, and he will plant at his place if he has a place. If he doesn't have, he will go in his lane somewhere where he can put and protect. And I'm sure when children go with their plant to anybody, I don't have space, but you have a space, please, I will put here. Everybody will allow it. That's the big education, I think. And that's what we are bringing. And other aspects, river cleaning, and everything, we want to make it a citizen. I have opened the doors of this ministry for schools. Every day school and college students come here. We have prepared a film. This is the most green building of India. And we are using 50% of the power of such size of buildings would have used. And we are producing more on the rooftop solar than what we consume. So it's an energy positive building. And there are many new innovative methodologies used. So we are showcasing them, we are taking them around, and they take a very important lesson of environment.
So this building is actually walking the talk.
Yeah.
Actually, could I come in?
Putting a plaque, and I'll be requesting Prime Minister, because Vaishno is the community in Rajasthan which did actually first Chipko agitation, and they were beheaded, but still they sacrificed their lives to protect the trees. So in their honor, we are putting a plaque, and that's our mission. We want to make everything into education, and I yesterday only discussed with Smriti Irani. We'll have joint meeting, and we'll have environment topics at different levels of education of that stage.
You mean to say student ambassadors for environment?
Yes, absolutely. We have already eco clubs in thousands of schools. We want to activate them.
We have a very fantastic discussion. Before we close, let's go around the panel and take closing comments, and then we'll come back to you for the final thoughts. Diksha, your closing comments?
Yeah. Before we close, since we were talking about this, I thought that it is important to mention here that sustainable development as such is embedded into our civilization. Not only should we promote these techniques, but we should somehow get back to our indigenous methods also. For example, small thing like, eating from a pattal. Now, when you eat onto the plates, you generate so much of detergents in cleaning them, and then that goes through into the water. Small techniques like eating through pattals, we could, save all those detergents and thus reduce our carbon footprint. We could just use them, clean them with water, eat on them, dump them, and that would be a good manure as well. So my point is, we shouldn't only see the techniques from the way it is being shown over to us from Western civilization. We should go back to our own, indigenous methods, which we've been using for years, and that is just one of the techniques. I mean, I just wanted to cite an example. So
quite appreciate it.
Interesting points. Viva, your closing comments?
I think I would like to close by saying I really welcome the inclusion of sustainable way of living based on traditional values of conservation and moderation. I think that is really key. I think we really need to invest more time, energy, and communication in passing this message to all fellow Indians, because I do believe that this will support the government in achieving these goals. And I wish the Minister best wishes for a very, very successful meeting in Paris.
How can social media help us in creating some awareness about this, so that more and more people get involved and there is public participation in this? Viva?
I think it's important because today the trend seems to be reversed. Parents actually listen to children, and I actually see children telling their parents not to smoke, not to use plastic. So I think children can become very, very powerful influencers, and they also need to know that this is their future, and they can start with doing little initiatives at their school, on their streets, in their buildings, and like we have all been saying, start planting trees, watering their plants, making much wiser decisions in terms of what they use and using less plastic.
Right. Thank you, Viva. Mr. Kandekar.
Well, I have been following COP for the last 20 years, and I think this is the first time that India is a talked about country, and people are looking at India with great hopes. So what happened in Kyoto, what happened in Copenhagen, or even the Geneva context, and various negotiations in Bonn, which recently concluded, I think India is a very powerful country today to set the global agenda, and we are sitting with that way. We are sitting with one of the most prominent global leader, Mr. Prakash Javadekar here, and we have got a lot of hopes from him because he is leading the hopes of 120 odd crore Indians that India should be a green leader at the world level. That is my expectation from Paris.
Thank you. Fascinating. Samir?
Akhilesh, let me just quickly make 2 points. The first point is that I think climate change is at an intersection of 2 very large projects India is undertaking. The first project India is undertaking is to complete the 20th century agenda. That is old-fashioned road, ports, railways, power plants, public infrastructure, social infrastructure, health, hospital, education. And this requires a certain kind of investment. And India needs to go to Paris to ensure that the 20th century project is not jeopardized by global machinations. We should be safeguarding, ring fencing the 20th century project. Alongside this 20th century project is the 21st century project, which is based on innovation, knowledge, the whole ecosystem of green sustainability, renewables, and space and high technology, digital economy, etc. The advantage India has with the 20th century project is that 2/3 of India is still to be built. 2/3 of the country, in terms of its infrastructure, roads, ports, and all sorts of development, is yet to be built. So, like the minister mentioned, we have no other country in the world had this opportunity to get it right the first time.
So, to get it green the first time.
To get it right the first time. I don't like labels. I'm saying we have to get it right. We have to get it right, and it has to be sustainable, and it has to be efficient. We will have to make some tough choices, and in some cases, we cannot allow privileged Western values to deny life and lifeline to certain parts of our population. But at the same time, we must see that, like the minister said, that we have 10 years or 15 years of this moment when India can actually show and take leadership in creating this 21st century architecture. And I think that is what the minister's agenda is: protect the 20th century project and propagate and be more ambitious in the 21st century agenda.
International leadership, sir?
The issue is not leadership, it is leadership of India, which will give ideas to the nations and will strive hard to arrive at a consensus which will be positive for the world. And where, just as my panelists have mentioned, and I owe to them, the whole evolution of India and leapfrogging, I can just say that cities were built by every country, but we are building 100 smart cities. That smartness is environmental friendliness. We are coming with a simple building code. If this size of project is there, what environmental steps they will take? 20,000 and more, what steps they will take? 50,000 and more, what they will take steps? 1 lakh and more, what steps? These will be simple conditions, but which will save water, which will save energy, which will produce renewable, which will use energy efficient material, and also ensure recycling, reuse, and harvesting. So all put together, we want to help in every way the building norms which we are building for sustainable cities and all cities. our traditional values. I always say, some Western countries say, oh, you are poor, that is why you are not consuming more. No, I said we have millionaires and billionaires, but nobody has the clothes drying machine. We solar dry our clothes. It's a value thing. It's a value thing. It's nothing to do with affordability. So those who can afford are also not doing it. So there are so many things we can. Children, yes, we will use, and they are the real ambassadors. Because now with education, I am seeing that Diwalis are less noisy. Ganpati and other festivals have become more eco-friendly. And the whole change has been brought in the families by the children. That is the great hope. Investment is a very important aspect because we can talk goody things many times, but it ultimately boils down to investment. And I can assure that we will not allow any country to allow or to impose any restrictive trade practices or any restrictive conditions on flow of technology and flow of finance, because that is absolutely needed. Otherwise, it is an innovation on our own. We'll be more cost effective, we'll be more innovative, and not only Jugaad, we'll have real innovative solutions and which will define India's future.
Before we close, I believe you have one or two important announcements to make.
I will say that this Google Hangout must be watched all over the world by millions who have hope for India. And therefore, you can give me suggestions of how we can make people more participate in environment actions. What can be new actions and new ideas? I'll say that we will reward good ideas by offering cash prizes, but more than cash prizes, I will offer them 4 days in various good forests, because that is really where they can't move always, but I'll give that. The scheme will be announced, but you can start giving ideas. We will collect all those ideas, consider all those ideas, and give prizes to those who are best. Thank you.
Fantastic. So this contest that the minister has just announced, the contours of this will be announced in the next 2 days, and this will be on MyGov. And before I close, let me just thank everybody who participated in this. I think this was a fantastic discussion. A lot of interesting points were made from India's traditional strengths, from its lifestyle practices to our modern strengths in innovation capacity. The panelists brought out their experience, and the contest has been announced. As the minister pointed out, India's efforts cannot be successful without a public participation, which is also the agenda that MyGov tries to inculcate, and therefore we hope that the public will be sufficiently enthused and educated after today's talk to give their ideas and suggestions. Thank you everyone for participating in this and watching, and thank you Google for helping us organize this. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks to you.